All right, so I'm back, and I'm going to talk to you about the second aspect that I want you to focus on. This is from the Church of Smyrna, whatever that means. I hope I said that right. Um, this is to them, but I want you to look at it as if it's to you, okay? And this is a description once again where in the last chapter it was talking, or the last part, it was talking about what God can hold, like the fact that he is there acknowledging the churches, acknowledging the angels. But in this one, this is an aspect of who God is. It says, these things says the first and the last, who was dead and came to life. Who would that be? I mean, a God does this? Wait, it says, these things says the first and the last, who was dead and came to life. So that could only be Jesus in my perspective, okay? So it's talking about who God is. Now it talks about us. It goes, I know your works, tribulation and poverty, but you are rich. There's a lot of Americans, at least that I know, that are very much like this. They have tribulations. Things aren't perfect. They're working hard. This is across the world. They are. But in a big perspective, like, we're actually very rich. And most of the world, whether they have it or not, they're actually pretty rich. Some people would be like, well, I have to do my laundry out in the river. Well, and that's poverty. But some Americans might be like, well, I want to be outdoors. I don't want to be stuck inside all the time. And they're just in their cement cities. So it's kind of this weird thing is that, like, some people that we might not think are rich, they're actually pretty rich. And my thing is that, like, that's a perspective, right? God has given each person around the world different things, but yet we all have works to deal with. We all have tribulations, and we all have some sort of poverty, always trying to reach for more, you know? And we know that because we always have to feed ourselves, right? So typically that's one of the starting of more, or the breath of air for the more. I kind of want to read this because this is a hard description. This is Revelations focused. So I can't describe this in my own words, okay? It says, and I know the blasphemy of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Now, to stop there is that, like, in my perspective, like, yes, there's great Jews out there, but behind it somewhere, there happened to be a segment that maybe weren't even Jews, but they call themselves Jews, and they're satanic. But in the other aspect, there's some people out there that are really bad people. Forget whether they're named or called or associated with Jews. There are people and entities, and the way bad people are above status level, they are bad, and they may or may not be controlled by something higher than we can think of. And it's a bad association, and it's a bad association with Satan, whether they know it or not. So we have this bad thing of sin that started with Adam and Eve, but we also have this, that was for us, but there was actually something else that happened before that in sin, and that was between another entity, and that was Satan himself. And so we have this kind of double influx of sin. So we have there's sin, then there's the action of what the devil did and what we did. So there's this, like, culmination of sinful stuff happening around us, whether you apply it to whatever it is that you're going to apply it to as something bad. So that's my kind of description. And I want to say that, like, I don't want you guys to think that in any way that there are some amazing Jews out there, and there's some amazing people that are seen as bad, but they're actually really good people. But they're struggling just like you are with their own struggles, their own conflict. But we want those people to be focused on God, and this powerful God. It says that he's in my perspective, with a little quote of he, he the first and the last, and who was dead and came to life. We want them to be focused on God. But we all have struggles, and how we deal with it is different. And they're going through works and tribulation, right? And we're going through works and tribulation. And so without stating this, I will have to add this in there, is that there's a slight thing of forgiveness, because this whole order is kind of above our own sin and our own tribulation. So they're going through tribulation too. And that doesn't rectify what they do or don't do in that suffering that maybe causes you suffering as well. So, but just a hint that they might be suffering too, and might be causing some more conflict in your life. So we have all that stuff going on. So I had to kind of make that statement. And some of people are even thrown in prison. I have this board that I read. I'm sure that there's some statements on there, and it's prayer every day for a different country. It's a pretty cool calendar. And something about the martyrs, and you pray for each day. And I think it's an amazing thing, because there is some suffering going on that's beyond the daily suffering that you may be going through, or maybe something really bad's going to happen to you in the next week, or it happened to you or your relative or whatever it is. And there's also some other individuals going through some things that are way outside of your context of tribulation, like jail or like other things. And they're being tested. So just to kind of keep note on that as well. And this is kind of the thing, is that yes, we're going through this, and that's about us, this tribulation. But now, what does God want us to do in this? It says, be faithful until death. And this is what he says. If we're faithful until death, I'm going to pause right there. He does give us something. But this is one reason why I believe that, yes, the gospel message is so important. But another pastor, I'm not quite sure which one told me this, or that I heard, is that one of our main concepts is to help even our Christian brothers and sisters to be faithful, right? And all the way to the end. So yes, we're supposed to say that gospel message at least one time, but it's also a great thing to help those people that have heard the Christian message to be faithful to it to the end. Because God gives us this gift, and remember this in your tribulation, and this great thing that God has for us is that, yes, he overcame death, right? He came to life. And so God can bring life even out of this tribulation you may have. But he gives you something very descriptive. It's going to be hard to understand, but it's the second part I want you to understand. And this is what he gives you through this tribulation. It says the crown of life. So he gives us life. So there's something more than this death, more than just the tribulation. There's this life. You get this crown of life. So God is a giver, and a giver of life. So if I can teach you or help you understand that through your tribulation, that yes, the tribulation can come all the way down to death or pain or whatever that may be, but God has life. He's got a crown of life for you.